There's nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. Welcome to The Bleeders, a podcast and support group about book writing and publishing. I'm writer and podcaster Courtney Kosak, and each week I'll bring you new conversations with authors, agents, and publishers about how to write and sell books. Today's guest is Andrew Bomback. He is the author of Doctor, which is part of the Object Lesson series. And he also wrote a parenting book called Long Days, Short Years, A Cultural History of Modern Parenting. And he's also a real life doctor. So we talk about what it's like to write about your day job, just his writing and publishing process with the Doctor book, which was his debut. And we just had such a fun conversation. I know you guys are going to love it. So let's get into it.
Hi, my name's Andy Bomback, and I'm the author of Doctor and Long Days, Short Years.
Doctor was first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give us like the origin story for that, because it started out as something that you'd conceived of as slightly
Very
different,
yeah.
Right? So explain that.
So around 2014, I started thinking about writing a book about being a doctor. And the idea was I said, I'm going to write sort of like a no holds barred behind the scenes look at what it's like to be a doctor. Like basically I'm going to share all the things that our profession's a little bit embarrassed about admitting. And I started just doing it as paragraphs because I was really into this lyric essay style. It worked really well with my writing style, where if you only write 22 minutes a day, writing like one great paragraph is a huge success. So I just started writing what I thought was like one great paragraph a day. And I eventually had this like 60, 70 page document of all these paragraphs. And then I just started to assemble them into chapters based on subject matter. And the idea was like, I'll have this book-length lyric essay about being a doctor. And so at the time, the sort of the mecca of this kind of essay was Grey Wolf. And they run this nonfiction prize contest. Now, I'm so naive to this thing. Like, I don't realize, like, this is like saying, like, I'm going to start running track and I'm going
for the Olympics or something.
Yeah, right. I'm going to start running track and I'm going to try to make the Olympics this year. It's like, it's so, but I didn't know the landscape. So like, I didn't realize like, this is like a 1 in 10,000 chance of winning, right? So I actually contacted the fiction agent that I had worked with in med school because her client had just won the previous Grey Wolf Award. So I was like, oh, like I see your client won the previous award. What do you think? And so I sent her the book and she was like, this is such a weird book. She's like, it's so insider baseball. I can't imagine anybody would really be able to place it. She's like, when you try to sell a book, the first question people ask is like, where would you find it in a bookstore? And I have no idea where you'd find it in a bookstore. And I was like, oh, I would try to look for it in the essays part of the bookstore, which is like the smallest section of the bookstore. It's like literally like half a shelf. It's like poetry and essays get like one little thing. But she was like, yeah, but if you're going to sell a book, the booksellers want your book to be in the medicine section.
Right.
So she's like, this is why it's not going to work. But she was like, oh, I'm happy to like, you can put my name on the submission and see what happens. But obviously nothing happened. And then so afterwards I was like, what do you think I should do? And she was like, honestly, this is like a small press book. If you can find a small press to do it, I don't think you need an agent. If you want to find a different agent that might be interested in it, like maybe they'll give you some advice. And she was really helpful and very honest. So then I did like what they always tell you to do, which is like, if you want to find an agent, just submit to your favorite author's agent and just see what happens. So I sent a query letter to like an agent who represents like 2 or 3 of my favorite authors. And I basically was just like, I love your authors. Like they're the kind of book that I want to write. In the cover letter, I quoted his authors and I was just like, I've written this book about medicine and can you read it? And he read it and he said, I love your content. I think it's like, this is the kind of book everybody would be interested in. And it's so clear to me who you're reading and whose books you love and how much you love their style. But no one's going to read you for style. He said, if anybody's going to read you, they're going to read you for content and for your ideas. And nobody is going to be like, oh, I can't wait to see what style he uses this time. He's like, so let them be the stylists and you just focus on content. And I think you could get this material across a lot better if you just wrote it in a traditional form. Don't try to do this lyric essay, white space thing. It's not what your material really is best suited for. And it was helpful advice. So then I reworked it and I made it a more conventional book, and I sent it back to him, and he said, I still think it's not quite ready to send places. I'm not sure it ever will, because it's such a hard book to sell, because in some ways it's sort of dark. Like, I'm not sure anybody would want to read a book about what their doctors think about them. Right? He's like, I'm not sure people really do need this sort of degree of transparency. I mean, I forget exactly how he said it, but he was just...
I would argue that that's what's good about it, but yes. All right, Bleeders, that was just a little preview. The whole interview is so good, and it is over on YouTube. The channel is youtube.com/@BleedersPodcast. There is a link in the episode description that will take you right to this specific video. And make sure you're signed up for the Bleeders Companion Substack for all kinds of newsletter exclusives. There is also a link for that in the episode description, and it is free to subscribe, but I actually just launched a paid subscription as well, where I am taking you behind the scenes of all my best bylines. I also published a post about my return to stand-up comedy and how I got ready to crush my first showcase. I wrote about my MFA and whether or not I think it is worth it. I also did a manifestation workshop to get y'all ready for the new year, and I think it's good any time of the year. So that video is also available for paid subscribers. So I hope you join me over on Substack for more good stuff from the Bleeders. And I hope you join me again next week for another instructive episode of the podcast. In the meantime, happy bleeding.